to the session 2, Sustainable Mobility Planning and Innovation.
Let's read this one.
Great. Balancing people's and territories' needs with economic and methodological innovation and technological innovation, I'm sorry about that. We'll be greeting by Mr. Oriol Barba, Director of MedCities, our lead partner of the project. So give him a hard welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have good news for you because WhatsApp is back. I don't know if you realize that there was a world WhatsApp shutdown for a couple hours. Not anymore, not anymore. We have WhatsApp again. But I kindly ask you not to use it during the session, all right? I have to ask you this. Thank you very much. My name is Oriol Barba. I'm the director of MedCities, and I will be the moderator of this session. Before starting, this session is entitled, again, Sustainable Mobility Planning and Innovation, Balancing People's and Territories' Needs with Economic and Technological Innovation. We will especially focus on a topic that came up at the end of the last session, which is the link between tourism, tourist destinations and mobility, which was the object of our second policy brief of the project. And we have today, I think is one of the assets of this meeting, we have several representatives from cities all over the region, not only in Europe, but also we have a lot of friends from Morocco, from Tunisia, from Jordan, from Turkey as well, that most of them, they are also tourist destinations, and they are facing this problem of linking the two topics. No, Lidwin was asking or was pointing out this at the end of the last session. We will have 5 speakers that I will be introducing progressively when they speak, and I would kindly ask those speakers to stick to the time, because I think that one of the assets of this panel is that we have among the audience experts and political representatives of many cities and many domains linked to the topic, and it would be very nice if at the end we can hear them and we can hear their questions. So we will try to keep the time. To do so, I have to suggest my speakers a little game, okay? There was a TV program in Spain back 20 years ago. It was called 59 Seconds. So when people spoke, they had a microphone and they could speak during 59 seconds. And after 59 seconds, the microphone dropped and they were speaking, they couldn't speak anymore. So they couldn't speak anymore because there was no microphone, okay? Here we don't have the technology to do the 59 seconds game, but we will do a different version. I will be seated here. After 8 minutes, I will stand up, okay? When I stand up, I am kindly asking the speaker to start finishing their presentation. If after a couple minutes, the presentation is not over, I will start approaching a little bit, okay? And try to, kindly suggest to finish the presentation. I hope that I don't go beyond that, okay? It's just, don't worry. I will be respectful, okay? I think that we will give you a short overview of the panel. This is the panel. We have Christodoulos Ioannou, a Larnaca council member that we had him at the introduction. Thanks for being here. He's also a member of the Committee of the Regions. We have Giuseppe Grezzi. I don't know if you can hear us. Yes, he can hear us. The people in the room at this moment, they cannot see you, but I can see you. Giuseppe Grezzi is the Mobility Council member of the city of Valencia in Spain since 2015, and one of the cities that has gone through a huge transformation on this domain during the last years, and it will be very interesting to hear them as well. We will have a third, hold on a second. Yes, we will have Jaime Ruiz, one of the experts that has been working on our policy briefs. Thank you, Jaime, for being with us today. Online also, Eloise Delsen, who's a member of one of the modular projects of the community, Enernet Met project. Eloise, I think you are also with us, no? And last but not least, we will have, Carlos Almeida, who will be explaining from the private sector side, and he's CEO of the EVO Electric Mobility Solutions. So we have views from different points of view, experts, policymakers, and private sector as well. Very briefly, I want to introduce the policy brief on sustainable mobility in tourist areas. By the way, I'm very glad to announce that in MedCities we will do our best to get the 4 policy briefs of the project translated into Arabic, because one of the important points of the project also on the program as a whole is to create ties and links between the 3 different shores of the Mediterranean. And we were discussing before with one of our Arab colleagues how important it is to have the information in your own language to be able to profit, because maybe the representatives that came to this meeting, they can express themselves in other language, but I'm sure that their teams at the municipality and the stakeholders, it will be much easier for them to read those topics in their original language in Arabic. So in MedCities we will do our best to make those translations and to distribute to the member cities. Essentially, the link between tourism and mobility is undeniable, let's say. There's here you have some figures in the screen. There are differences in the way we move when we are in our home city and when we are abroad. You know the traditional thing that we spend much more water when we are outside home than when we are home. In terms of mobility also, we change our mobility patterns when we are outside, and we have, all of us when we travel, we have an impact on the way the mobility system of the city is structured. We are all tourists regardless if we are traveling for work or for anything. People that go to another city, they have an impact. So the cities need resources in order to face that challenge. We've been working under the project on this process, having in-depth reviews by key experts and getting inputs by several organizations. And at the end, what we tried is to identify why we need to integrate those topics, no? And to understand that adapting mobility to tourism is also beneficial for tourism. So making our destinations more sustainable in terms of mobility is a way not to hinder or not to block tourism, but also to become attractive and to improve the quality of tourism. So these are 2 topics that if we tackle them together, we will have a positive aspect for both of them. It's not that we are dealing with 2 opposite interests that affect negatively one another. This is the vision that we try to express in this policy brief that is already outside. And we ended up with some recommendations that you have here, and I don't want to extend myself because I said at the beginning that I wanted to be brief, so I have to be an example for you. But you have on the screen, I don't have to read them, but I really recommend you to go over them once we finish the session. The first question, and this will be used to give the floor to our first speaker, Christodoulos Ioannou, is the question of sustainable tourism. I don't like labels that we put into topics just to feel well. No? I remember that 10, 15 years ago, we used the smart for everything. No? We had cities, and then we smart cities, and we have mobility, smart mobility, and suddenly everything was modern, everything was fine, everything was perfect, okay? We don't want to use the word sustainable in the same way, no? I am managing director of an organization working on sustainable tourism, and I try to participate in this kind of events, promoting sustainability and this kind of values. But last month, in my neighborhood, they removed 30 parking slots, for motorbikes and for cars. And as the mayor was saying before, when this happens to you, it's not that easy to promote sustainability because suddenly you are affected by those measures. No? And when you travel, we, for example, in this conference, we try to promote sustainability, and as you know, we offered most of the participants public transport tickets to move around the city, but then when you get to the airport and you are tired, you feel like taking a taxi, and it's not the same planning it that when you have to do it, okay? So a little bit of that is what we want to tackle in this session, moving from theory to reality. And the first question and the first speaker will speak about mobility in Larnaca, but particularly on that. Is it possible to approach mobility and tourism in a sustainable and long-lasting way? To answer partially this question and explain us many other things, please warmly welcome our speaker, Christodolos Ioannou. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If you want the short answers to the questions, probably no, but that's not what we're here for. So I will be quite brief today because, you know, politicians, we don't like just to ignore the experts and satisfy the public short term. We also like to answer questions. So I would like to maybe dedicate more time to that. So, the case of Larnaca and what we would like to speak about today. So, a few things. For example, for the past 2 years, maybe we're a little bit late into this mentality, but we started incorporating mandatory bike parking spaces in private apartment blocks and in neighborhoods, incorporating the mandatory green areas with some criteria, well, how many houses there are there, how many apartment blocks, etc., in order to try to promote the ease of use of bicycles for our citizens. We are constantly trying to improve the bicycle network, which is particularly difficult in our case because Larnaca, and this is the case for many of the cities that are here today. Larnaca has been a city that is an ancient city and has not moved geographically for thousands of years. This is creating a problem that the modern world is built on an area that was inhabited and started built thousands of years ago. And we have cases where the pavements are too small, where the roads are too small. Wherever we dig for something new, whether that is a building or that is an improvement to the network, we find ancient ruins, which is beautiful, but at the same time creates a lot of complications in trying to overcome building an efficient and sustainable bicycle and walking network alongside the road network. But we're particularly grateful to the support that we've had from our European partners, particularly through MedCities, that we've been able to establish an SUMP regarding that. About tourists and local citizens, and I will mention an example from the Encircle program that recently finished. Maybe some of you here were also a part of that. We have established bicycle routes, and we provided many bicycles for free to a lot of hotels that tourists can use for free. These routes we have 3 such routes which are mapped online and can be accessed from the mobile phone or from a website. One route is the beachfront, which is the city and the county of Larnaca has a very large and extensive beachfront. And we have managed to create a bicycle route that is only interrupted by the airport, which is in the middle of this route. But other than that, I believe that it's a very efficient and also a beautiful route to follow. The tourists or the locals can get all the information and the instructions online and on their mobile phone and use one of the bicycles, either the free ones or a private one, to go to that. The second route that we have mapped and is available online for ease of use is a religious and archaeological route. Larnaca is a city that has a lot of religious ruins for both the Christian and the Muslim faith, and also a lot of archaeological ruins from the Hellenistic period and onwards that we are displaying, and most of which are free for the public to access. Museums, archaeological sites, the ancient port, the ancient sewage system, etc. And also the third route that we have mapped is a bird watching route. We have a very large salt lake in Larnaca and a natural trail, natural physical trail. It's a Natura assigned location, and that is also incorporated into the route that people can walk or bicycle through. And it's very easy to get that information online. We have informed all hotels or tourist agents, and that is something mainly for tourism, but of course the locals can benefit by taking advantage of that. In parallel to that is the walking routes, and this was also the result of a European program that we were part of. We have scheduled and free guided tours of the city in specific times throughout the day, especially they are much more in the high season periods of tourism, where the municipality pays for the guided tour, and there's a 1 hour walk around the city with explanations in English, some other languages, mostly English, about the historical significance and tradition of that can be found in Larnaca. The fact that we are an ancient city gives us the opportunity to show a very wide range of cultural and historical sites and stories. Beside the free guided tour, anyone can access our website online and have a safe walking tour. We have installed in various monuments throughout the city QR codes that indicate that in those monuments you can scan the QR code with your mobile phone and listen in a translation of various languages a description about where you are, what this is, which is particularly convenient and interesting and allows you to have the guided tour, but at your own pace and in the way that you want to set it up at the time that is convenient to you. It's available in many languages, and it's something that we're particularly proud of, and I think is a very interesting tool for tourists. But also, many times as locals, we live within these monuments here in Athens. You go by the Parthenon all day, but it's interesting to take a moment and experience it, not as a local, but as realizing what the story really is behind it. And so it's particularly helpful, in my opinion, also for the citizens. We have difficulty in the public transport system, which is managed by a private company, but that is not the difficulty. Unfortunately, we have a cultural and educational problem when it comes to public transportation. And I know that that is the case for some other smaller communities as well, not the case so much in others. We do not have a mentality of using public transportation, and that creates a big problem. We're heavily investing on making the routes more efficient, which are, by the way, bus routes. However, we have a difficulty in making people realize, people talk about climate change, people talk about what they want to do, and it's important when you ask for them in polls, and they want to do something about it, and it was discussed in the previous sessions, but then you have to do something about it, and it interferes with your daily routine, and you have a difficulty yourself, even though you really want to, you're not lying, but you have a difficulty in implementing that change. And we do see a particular difficulty in that. We keep investing on the public transportation system. It is mostly used by tourists, which is a start. However, we want to widen that. So, in terms of our SUMP, we are trying to improve the sidewalks. As I mentioned before, unfortunately, there are many areas in the cities because of their age, which is 1,000 years of old. There's problems with the sidewalks are either too small, they're too high, sometimes they're not even there. We're trying to improve that. We are installing shading in the town center, which is very important. Larnaca is a city that in its high season has temperatures over 35 degrees Celsius, sometimes 40. The extreme humidity that is there makes it very difficult to walk and bicycle. Maybe if you're a tourist and you go to the beach and have a cocktail, you have the luxury of walking a little bit more and then going into the sea. But unfortunately, when you have to work, walking it's not a complaint. In some months, it is not possible. We're trying to improve that with shading. There's a limit as to where we can go. Am I running out of time? Okay. You're a little bit aggressive. So, and the installation of electric chargers and the availability of free parking for electric vehicles is something that we are promoting. Personally, I think that is a halfway solution to the problem, still beneficial. There was a very important initiative by the central government subsidizing the purchase of electric cars, which helped because, as you know, electric cars are significantly more expensive than their combustible engine equivalents. However, in the case of Cyprus particularly, most of our electricity is generated by burning fossil fuels, and particularly petrol. So in our case, the car is not emitting carbon dioxide. However, the way we generate that electricity is, so the increased usage of electricity because of that, at the end of the day, has a net effect that is much smaller on what we would like to believe. So I think that is something that needs to be addressed holistically, and we cannot, I feel, and even though I come from the governing party, I have to say this, I feel like in many cases, generally in Europe, we like to tick boxes as to, okay, we're promoting electric cars, we're doing this and we're doing that. But holistically, all this is not synchronized into being particularly more efficient. And that is something that we have to be more careful with. Finishing, I would like to say that our major problem, in my opinion, is comes down to culture and education, to our reliance on the use of cars, to how much we want to change our routine in order to adapt to climate change, even though we want to. And this is where we have to work with civil organizations, with every stakeholder possible, in order to make this happen, because I believe that will make the change particularly more effective. This is it for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Chris, for this interesting presentation, and apologies for pushing a little bit. Our next speaker is Giuseppe Grezzi, Deputy Mayor for Sustainable Mobility and Public Space of the City of Valencia. Valencia was awarded in 2019 the Bike Friendly City Award for the best cycling infrastructure in Spain. I don't know if you've been to Valencia, but I really recommend you to go to Valencia. It's kind of the place to be now in Spain. And we're very happy to have with us Giuseppe, which, as the previous speaker, both are very committed political representatives at MedCities. Giuseppe, you won't see me waking up, standing up in 10 minutes, but if possible to keep the time, I'll be grateful. And thank you very much for being with us today and having behind you, I see this picture of the Plaza de la Reina in Valencia, which has been one of the major transformations in the city. Really, really astonishing project that maybe we'll have the chance to listen a little bit about it. Thank you, Giuseppe, and you have the floor.
Thank you to you, to both of you, to all of you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I cannot be there because for all this transformation that will be made in these 7 years, next Thursday we will be in Grenoble in France to be, luckily, European Green Capital. We are in the final with Cagliari in Sardinia. It will be a very nice, interesting final, and this afternoon we will travel there. So that's why I'm not with you, but you know, we have this meeting. It's very important for the city. So, you, as Oriol was saying, we worked a lot in these 7 years to change the city. We wanted to make something that we can say less cars, better city, and a better city for all. And we wanted an equal, safer, clean, green, accessible, universal accessible, and efficient city. Some data, as you were saying. Valencia is the Spain's third largest city with a population of almost 800,000. It's the capital of the Valencia region. It's located by the seaside. To understand, it's south of Barcelona, like 350 kilometers. We have a sum from 2013, and we started to work on that. But also we approved a series of urban strategies. One is the urban agenda for 2030. Also, we approved the climate mission for Valencia 2030 to make Valencia climate neutral for the citizens, obviously. And we were the first city in Europe to implement mission-oriented innovation. Yes, we were envisaging the European City Mission, and we signed the Green City Accord. And we are working a lot with that to meet and accelerate the European Green Deal. And we worked a lot on sustainable mobility, but we had a fulsome strategy to transform Valencia to become more greener. We have a green and biodiversity plan. In all the actions and policies that we push it forward, we want to plant 3,000 new trees in the city, in any neighborhood. We have this park, it's called the Turia Park. It's the ancient river that used to flood the city. The last one was in 1957. So they decided to change the course of the river, and in this, what we have the riverbed, there became a park. Right now it's a 9-kilometer park, and it's like a backbone of the city that goes from east to west. So it's the most important park and the most important urban park in Spain. Then we worked to increase alternatives to car. What we did, building new bike lanes, protected bike lanes. We increased the bike lanes by 40% in 7 years, and we want to make a real network. As you know, you can have some bike lanes. If they are disconnected, they are not used, because you cannot go in a bike lane and then go in the car lanes, because just few people would use it. So we are increasing all the network, and in these 7 years we experimented an increasing of more than 200% of the use of bike in all this bike network. And right now we have like 15 new kilometers that we are working on it. There will be a reality between the end of this year and 2023. That's why in 2019 we're entitled with this prize to have the best bike lane network. Also, we want to recover better public space, as we want all the cities that we are gathered here. And we had 150,000 square meters new pedestrian area in the city. In the city center, we made some projects with new pedestrian area. The main square that you can see behind me with the tactical urbanism was a reality in May 2020, just after the lockdown that we had because of the pandemic of the coronavirus. And now we're working the big project to build up, the new floor and new areas. But in all the city center, we have this 30,000 new square meters of pedestrian area, and the transit has been reduced by 50 to 70% in the city center. That helps us also to reduce transit all around the city center. The city center is like a circular area because it was founded originally from the Romans, and all the development of the ancient city. It makes like a roundabout around it, and we are experimenting also reducing of cars all around it. With all these strategies and policies, we reduced NO2 in 2021 by 15%, and particles 10, PM10, by 27%, more than any other big city in Spain. Also, we worked to improve the services that we provide to our citizenship with the public transportation system. We increased the budget by 30%. For next year, we will have under 30 million euros of budget. It's a big company. We have almost 500 buses of fleet. We renewed it in this year by 330 of the 480 fleet that we have. The result of that is that we increased until 2019. As you know, 2020 there was a drop of the transit in all the cities and also in the public transportation. So we increased the use of buses by 11%, and because of the increasing of the budget, and also we improved all the procedures and all the lanes. We changed the lanes. We created new, just to give the alternatives to the people that we want to tell them that to leave car at home and using public transportation, to walk and to go with bike. In the same period, in all the city, we reduced the use of car by 10%. And as you know, it's not so easy to reduce the use of car. And it's a great result because of all these strategies. Right now, where we are, we want to become a green capital. We are working on a low emission zone in all the urban area to control also the transit from the metropolitan area to the city, back and forth. That's the big problem that we have in Valencia, and I think we share with this situation with all the metropolitan area in Europe, around the Mediterranean, and maybe we can say around the whole world. Because while the modal share of car in the city is around 23%, the modal share in the metropolitan area is around 73% by car. So that's the big problem that we have. That's why in the metropolitan area we're working with the region to have a new mobility plan to be metropolitan and to improve strategies to give alternatives to the people coming from that side to work in Valencia, and from Valencia in that side to go to industrial sites and to work there. So that's part of the strategy that we have, and we must improve a lot because that's a big problem that we have right now in Valencia. And then we are making so many strategies to change the way we move and we work, or we enjoy the city for buying or to enjoy when we go out and we enjoy the city. And that's the big problem. And we are tending to make new residential parking areas in any neighborhood in the city. We created the new bus lane, also metropolitan and metro lane to work on night, and all the strategy that we must do to tend to become a 50 million city. That one of the strategy that is becoming popular. It's very useful to change the way the people live in the city. That's part of it. That's more of that. I hope you can come to Valencia, and I'll listen to the other presentation if there are some questions later. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Giuseppe, for keeping the time as well. And if you can stay with us, it will be very nice for the questions. They say that strategies without projects are dreams, and projects without strategies are nightmares. I think that the interesting case of Valencia is that you've been able to combine action with the strategies at the same time, and showing citizens that tangible results at short term are necessary, but also long term strategies are at the same time. Thank you a lot, Giuseppe. And now we will be shifting to the innovation part of the panel, and the first speaker will be Jaime Ruiz. He's an e-mobility expert, and he was also an e-mobility manager of the city of Murcia, southern Valencia in Spain as well. And he's been the expert of the project on behalf of Polis of the policy brief on urban and e-mobility that will be presented now. Thank you, Jaime, for being with us. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Oriol. Good morning, everyone. I have my own chrono here, so that you don't have to worry for me. My goal is to stick at these 8 minutes. Thank you. Well, my name is Jaime Ruiz. I'm a co-founder and managing director of Cities Forum, an international consultancy firm. And I've been in charge of making the third e-mobility policy brief, the third policy brief about e-mobility in the Mediterranean. And I'm bringing the findings, the conclusions that we've drawn. And because I want to give you an overview of what we've found out. First, let's talk about electric infrastructure. I guess you are aware that in many cities we have the problem of having a specific charging network, electric charging network, but if you cross to the next municipality, the surroundings municipalities, you have a different infrastructure, a different operator, a different app to have access to electric charging. So this is a hassle for residents, but above all for tourists. We should think about planning and deploying electric infrastructure at a higher level, probably a regional level or even a national level, and try to make this infrastructure interoperable, because otherwise the user experience won't be good enough. That's clear. Facilitate access to electric charging. With that, we mean that it is key to provide electric infrastructure, electric charging services in not only large cities, but in medium-sized and small cities. Bear in mind that small cities can't afford to pay the cost of this infrastructure. So we need to find a proper solution, and probably this solution will has to do with fostering public-private partnerships, so that large companies, above all energy companies, can pay that infrastructure and using different business models and business schemes. This is something that is already happening in many territories and cities, but we need to keep on working that. Improve coordination between administrations. We know, we are aware that in many countries and in many contexts, the municipalities work by their own. They make their own progress on fostering e-mobility and deploying infrastructure, giving incentives, and besides, the regional government is doing the same. So we see redundancies in different regions with that. So it is key that not also municipalities and regions, but national governments are fully aligned to what local governments are needed and are capable to deploy and install. Encourage the transition to EVs. We all have a responsibility towards advancing in the EV uptake. So there are many options to encourage our citizens to shift to electric mobility. cities should lead by example and start shifting their conventional car fleet to electric fleets. And in the same way, the private industry, the automakers industry, need to make an extra effort to place the electric vehicle, electric cars, in the core of their efforts. I've been witnesses of how car dealerships, how sales representatives or salesmen in car dealerships disencourage people when they ask for an electric model. So we can't act that way. We need to promote and foster electric mobility altogether. Foster cross-city learning. We've had today outstanding cases of cross-city learning experiences through MedCities, through CVNet, through Polis. So it is key to keep on working on that kind of initiatives. We collaborate in Spain with RECIC, that is the Spanish network of smart cities, and it is crucial to facilitate the access to information and to the experiences that other cities have had. Not only successes stories, but also failures. Because it's the way to speed up the EV uptake in cities that aren't as much developed as other. Offer on-demand e-mobility solution for tourists. This is key in the Mediterranean. There are some ongoing business models that are addressing this need. I know an application that is offered to all hotels, through which the guest can hire a couple of electric bikes to be ready early in the morning, or a couple of electric scooters, Tesla, an electric moped, whatever they want. And we need to encourage that kind of services for tourists. Foster regulation. We've suffered from the problem of trying to get used to this new mobility. I'm referring, for instance, to personal mobility devices. The most famous one is the electric kick scooter. Many cities have had to design or redesign their urban mobility ordinances or create new urban mobility ordinances to address the issue of micro-mobility wave. Barcelona is a good example of that. Inform and raise awareness. This is probably one of the most important policy recommendations. We need to inform people about the benefits of electric mobility, because otherwise our efforts won't have the proper impact on people. We need first to inform, also to communicate, and after that we'll be well positioned to raise awareness on the need, on the urge to decarbonize our urban mobility. I'm finishing, Oriol. Promote shared electric mobility. Shared electric mobility represents a great ally to make our cities more livable, to remove cars from our streets, and to improve the air quality of our cities. We need, in the Mediterranean, we must work harder in promoting this kind of urban mobility services. And we have very good examples of that kind of services in Valencia, for instance, that we've had the Urban Mobility Counselor, and in other Mediterranean cities should work harder on that. Foster data-driven decision-making. If you don't measure, you can't improve your service or whatever. So it's important to collect data, but also to analyze it, exploit it, and try to use it for to improve the decision-making process. So this is going to be one of the most relevant trends at present in above all large cities, and we are responsible for keep on working on that. Leverage renewables to speed up e-mobility. If we power electric vehicles with electricity produced by pollution source of energy, we are doing anything. There is no sense on doing that. So let's work on coupling these technologies and make them be available at larger scale. Plan and set goals. It's key to design bespoke e-mobility strategies in our cities, because if we don't have a plan, we can't get our goals. We must be aware of how important it is to properly plan the future of e-mobility. Bring the electric vehicle closer to the people. People need to test an electric car, an electric moped. It's important to make e-mobility fairs, to make exhibitions so that people can try an electric kick scooters, because many people haven't tried yet. Create synergies with the stakeholders. We are doing that right now. And here we have the example of what I was explaining before. Public-private partnerships are key to speed up the EV uptake. And the last policy recommendation, the electrification of public transportation, starting with the electric buses. As a piece of information, I can tell you that Greece has committed to a minimum procurement target of EVs by 2025 in 37%, and in 2030 to 57%. This is the right path, the right strategy. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jaime. I like your strategy. You said, you don't need to keep the time, I have the telephone, and then you speak for 12 minutes. But I was smart, though. Thank you. And last point, you were raising the need of PPP, and links with our next presentation from Carlos Almeida, is the CEO of EVO Electric Mobility Solutions. I would like Carlos to speak about how can the private sector contribute to this endeavor and to offer electric mobility solutions also at a reasonable cost, because I think something we haven't tackled yet is that sustainable mobility measures cannot contribute to enlarge inequalities. So we need to be able to provide sustainable solutions for everybody and not enlarging this gap between one part of the population of the other. Thank you very much for being with us today, and we have you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Let me start by telling that before I launched the company, I was to work for the public sector. Okay, I worked for 6 years in the public sector. Then, when I left, me and some friends, we decided to create EVO Electrical Mobility and to develop a platform to mitigate and to help solve the problems and barriers to deploy electrical mobility. So we developed the platform. We intended to solve the problem that the previous speaker has mentioned, that the problem of interoperability. So one of our first goals was to have a system that even with a lot of private companies installing charging stations across several cities, we wanted that the citizens were able to charge anywhere without having to make contracts with all the companies, all the private companies. Then we also wanted to connect the private sector with the public sector, namely companies, because from our experience, companies are a major stakeholder on electrical mobility because they have huge fleets and they have a big role because they start shifting their fleet for electrical vehicles. And what we felt in Portugal, since we started electrical mobility in 2010, it was the problem of the egg or the chicken. Who comes first, the electrical vehicles or the charging infrastructure? Well, from our experience, what comes first is charging infrastructure. So when I was on the public side, we launched a pilot project to install fast charging stations across Portugal, connecting the major cities, okay? So what we felt is that we needed to create the basics, a small part of the infrastructure for people to feel safe to buy an electrical vehicle, to travel between cities without having afraid to be stuck on the highway without charging, okay? So we launched the pilot project. We also launched several incentives to private companies to start shifting their fleet, and it worked very well, okay? We also created a public agency to promote electrical mobility, and with that agency, we launched a platform, which in reality is the 1.0 version. This one is the 2.0, okay? And this company has launched legislation that states that any big utility or small company that wants to install charging station in anywhere is obliged to assure interoperability. So anyone who installs a charging station needs to make the charging station available to everyone. And that is made by connecting the charging station to a backend which assures interoperability between electrical utilities, for instance, okay? So in Portugal, there are around 100 CPOs, okay? We are a small country, but with this system, we have a lot of CPOs, charging station operators, and we also have split the use of the charging station. In Europe, I think we are the only country who has done that, and what I mean is that in Portugal, if someone installs a charging station, is not selling electricity, okay? The electricity is sold by a different player that is a supplier of energy. And by doing that, anyone with a mobile app can go to a charging station independently who is the owner, and with the app he can start charging, okay? So in reality, the citizen makes two payments, one to the operator and one to the energy supplier, okay? So it's very similar to the sale of electricity in the households, where you can change the supplier. In electric mobility, what we have done is you can always change supplier in 1 minute, and the next minute you can choose a different supplier to charge on the same charging station. And you do that by using a mobile app, so it's quite easy, okay? Well, another problem that we faced was to interconnect all the stakeholders, the charging station operators, the businesses, the restaurants, the shoppings, everyone. So we designed a platform capable of supplying services to all sides of the ecosystem, okay? So the same platform can have services for you to operate and manage the charging stations, can have services for someone that has a restaurant and wants to promote the charging for their clients. And we also have services for the citizens who want to charge anywhere independently, who owns the charging station. Anyone that has a parking lot can use the platform to monetize and to share the charging stations without having to invest on the back end. This is an example. We now are working with different problems. Since we have now a huge network in Portugal, we are facing power restraints in certain places. So we also have developed load balancing features on the platform that if you only have a certain power, we manage the charging stations intelligently, and we allow several vehicles to charge at the same time, but changing the power of the charging based on what is available on the building or on the network. We are also making the match between photovoltaic systems on the buildings and on network with the charging, because one of the problems was when the workers go to work and they are on the company and then connect the electrical vehicles on the company, they start charging early in the morning at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. But there is no sun. So we want to promote the use of renewables. And what we are doing, we allow them to connect to the charging station, but we postpone the start of the charging until there is sun, so they can charge with green energy. Okay, then we are doing that mainly in companies, not on the public network, of course, but in the private sector. We also felt the need to integrate in companies not only the electrical vehicles, the cars, but also motors and bicycles. So the platform is agnostic in terms of charging stations and also in terms of vehicles. So we connect the entire ecosystem. If you have bicycles or motors, you can connect also to these and manage as a whole. We have several projects of electrical bicycles using also the platform from a different perspective. We have an example also of the Aveiro municipality, where they had these old traditional bolts they used to transport salt in the past, and we installed second life batteries from electrical vehicles on these boats, and we installed charging stations on the piers. And now these boats charge on the piers with 100% green energy, and it's a touristic boat, so we are helping the tourism with low emissions. Some other examples that now in Portugal are being done, the government is launching also tenders. What we felt is, when a tourist comes, they are afraid from hire a rent-a-car, because if they want to visit an historical place that is far from a city, they are afraid not to have a charging station. So now they are launching a tender to co-finance the private companies like hotels and also public municipalities to install charging stations on historical places that are far away from big cities. Let me just talk a little more about the benefits for the public sector. As I said before, this platform assures the interoperability by interconnecting all the CPOs and several platforms. It works like the roaming in telecommunications. It assures that you can charge anywhere, okay? So it also helps to attract investment. That was what occurred in Portugal, because if you want to connect a charging station, if you are a restaurant or you are a small company, you don't need to invest on the back end, okay? So the public entity has already a back end, so you can connect, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on software, because there's already there by the public sector. So it accelerates the growth of the charging network. It provides tools for you to monitor. It can be integrated with dashboards from local municipalities, and you can collect information also for the platform. And from the citizen side, you have a mobile app that allows you to monitor and to have your history of charging and connect anywhere. So no problem with interoperability. It's agnostic in terms of hardware, in terms of charging station operator, so it works well in disseminating the electrical mobility. It also has built-in payment methods, so anyone, even a tourist that comes to Portugal, can easily charge because they insert the credit card and they start charging. It works like the Uber app, okay? It's the same. You download and you start charging. It's easy. We also have the carbon footprint calculation, and we have some smart functionalities that allow the user to interact with the charging, let's say, deciding when he wants to charge. For instance, I can say during the night that I want to connect my vehicle at home or in the public network and start charging when there is 70% of renewables being used to produce electricity. So it makes the day-to-day easy for drivers, and it's a complement. It helps complement the public investment because in the beginning the public needs to invest, but afterwards the private initiatives comes to appear, and the investment comes from the private, not from the public. Okay. So we have won several awards for innovation and sustainability. We also have contributions for the sustainable reports of companies. And EIT Urban Mobility in 2020 has also helped us. The European Union, through the EIT Urban Mobility, is one of our shareholders, and we thank you them for that.
Thanks a lot, Carlos, for keeping the time as well, and for this presentation that I would summarize saying that make lives easier to people that want to use electrical mobility, and that is an asset. We will have our last speaker that will speak online, Mrs. Eloise Delseni from Cap Energies, is a partner of the Enernet MOP project. This project, as Mrs. Delseni will explain now, was about to promote cross-country charging networks, so that when we move around, we make ourselves easier. Can you hear us well?
Yes, I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's perfect. So thank you very much for being with us this morning, and you have the floor for the next 10 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation on the screen?
Not yet, but we will very soon. I will pass the slides myself, I think.
Okay, perfect.
But hold on a second.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I would just say next slide if you agree to
Yes,
pass
no
the
problem.
slide, okay?
Thank you.
Perfect. So thank you to the urban thematic community, urban transport community for the invitation. And I'm sorry for not being in Athens today, because we are actually preparing a proposal for the current call of the new programming period of the Interreg Euromed program. So I'm very happy to present to you the Enernet MOB project. You can go to the first slide. So Enernet MOB was actually an integrated project. So it has the ambition to go into 3 phases: the study, pilot, and then capitalization phase. Sorry, I cannot see the screen, so I will go with my presentation. Okay, so it has ended last April, and it was a consortium of 16 partners representing 12 countries with a total budget of more than 5 million euros. So it was kind of a big and strategic project for the program. The ambition was the development of electromobility solutions and pilot actions in order to overcome medium trip limitations and to coordinate future investment on electric transport and to improve public policies on e-mobility. You can go to the next slide. In these 4 years, we were able to produce a lot of deliverables that you can find on the website of the project. We were able to work on sustainable electromobility plans in each regions involved in the projects. We were able to implement 13 charging stations. They were placed in different regions of the territories, and it was important to test this solution of e-mobility, and for some of them they integrated renewable energies. You can go to the next slide. It's a hard project to explain because we were focusing on several thematic. The first one was connecting islands and urban areas, so it was intermodality, and we were able to install 9 charging stations and 5 electric vehicles to test also the mileage of the batteries of these vehicles. And it was very interesting for touristic areas to have better searoad trips availabilities for tourist citizens, for instance. The second pilot was showing electromobility. As you heard before, it's also a very interesting thematic. And the last one, next slide, was the city logistic. I'm a bit more comfortable to present to you this thematic because it was the one in which Cap Energies, that I will present to you just after that, we work on this thematic. We were able to test the last mile freight transport connections. As you may know, it is very expensive things to think about for companies. The last mile delivery one is quite important, and so we were able to work on food hub. The food hubs are located inside the urban centers of cities, and they make these final delivery ones to the clients, to restaurants, or to the citizens. And so you heard also about the low emission zones. In France, for instance, it's already implemented in cities like Marseille or Montpellier. It is implemented since September. So in theory, you cannot enter the city centers if you have thermal vehicles that pollutes too much. So for delivery companies, it's very, very important, especially for foods, to change their fleet and to transition to this more sustainable and more green transport connection for this last mile delivery. The next slide. It's our pilot presentation. So Cap Energies was able to agree with this food hub in Marseille called, in France it's called national markets. There are national markets located inside the city. And so all the local producers of food, of agri-food especially, comes to this site. And then from this site, they storage the goods and they transport them to the city centers and to the final clients. So in this food hub, we were able to install a solar carport with a PV panel, as you can see, and a storage station, a storage unit. We were able to connect 2 charging points, and one of them was fully dedicated to a refrigerated electric van. And it was used by a company that is called Urbine in France. And you can go to the next slide. You can see a few results. I hope that you can read them. And it has shown that the delivery ones were totally covered by one charging of the vehicle. So that was the first good point of the experience of using an electric van. It is able to cover the delivery ones every day. We have, of course, saved a lot of CO2, of course, and also the solar carport, which consumed renewable energies and not the grid. Directly the grid, you can see that it can cover the needs of the truck more than 80% over a year. The experimentation during the project was, of course, very short because it was a long time to implement it and not a long time to experience it, but over a year it could cover the needs of more than 80%. So next slide, please. Yes, this integrated project has able to enhance knowledge for everyone on electromobility infrastructures. We were able to work, of course, on the same technical standards and to integrate protocols for all the med regions. So that was very positive as well. We increased the capacity to implement policies on regional and urban planning because a lot of the regions involved as France have now implemented this low emission zone, for instance, to ban thermal vehicles from the city centers. And so it's a very important and very good transnational cooperation that happens with this kind of network of charging station towards the Med area. Next slide, please. Yes, for conclusion, I wanted to present to you Cap Energies, the cluster that I'm representing. Next slide, please. So Cap Energies is a pôle de compétitivité in France. We are a cluster. We are basically a business association. We represent more than 500 members, as you can see, and now we are able to develop 4 European projects per year since 2013. So we had acquired quite a good transnational experience, and we really want to focus on this activity because it's really important for all companies and also for the improvement of all territories in the Med area. We work closely with the Région Sud, the Région Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur in France, but also with Corsica, Guadeloupe, Réunion Island, and the Principality of Monaco as well. These kind of territories all face the same challenge as to be at the end of the energy production. So they need to be more resilient and to be more active in the production of own energy, so local energy. We are dedicated to the energy transition and particularly on 3 strategic key segments, let's say, of the energy transition: to reduce carbon emissions and to improve energy efficiency, especially on transport and with e-mobility. We work also on optimizing and securing local energy systems and the production of low carbon energy. And the last slide, I think, yes, with the support of everyone that support the cluster, I just wanted to say a word on this green logistics chain that is a key thematic for the Med area. We are currently preparing a proposal, as I said, for the next programming period, for the next programming program of the Interreg Euromed. It will help to green this logistic part of the agri-food hub in the Med area, and we will work on retrofitting of vehicles. It's when you change a thermal vehicle into an electric one. You just change the motor, let's say, you change it into an electric battery. We will work on biofuels as well, biofuels produced from local biomass, so with the local producers. And we will hopefully be selected to test new demonstrators, new pilot sites, and to continue to promote e-mobility and greener, sustainable transport. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Eloise, for this presentation. I would invite the 3 speakers that are in the room, if they can join me here for any questions that we could have. And if you still have 10 more minutes, Eloise and Giuseppe, that would be great. I would like also to ask the organizers to extend the session 5 more minutes, because that would allow us at least to have 10 minutes of questions and answers. Please, Christos, Jaime, Carlos. I have some backup questions here, like Alessia did great in the previous session, but I really would like to hear the audience now. I mean, I know that we have representatives from many territories and cities with interesting challenges, things they are doing, things they're planning to do, that maybe they can briefly explain and see how this links, or maybe they can ask specific questions to the participants here. If you feel like doing so, please just introduce yourself at the beginning and try to be as short as possible. Do we have anyone? Maybe Mr. Khalifat, the mayor of As-Salt in Jordan. Do we have a microphone here? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. If you can introduce yourself, thank you.
Please, how to maintain sustainability transport within a green area for a car or a walker in the narrow road according to decrease poisonous gases.
Okay, so that was how to promote sustainability in green areas, no? In narrow roads. That's one of the first questions we have. Maybe we can grab some other questions in the audience. Any comments around? No? Online also we have 20 participants. Let me check if we have any comment on the chat, and if not, we can maybe. Does anyone in the room or online have any thought about how to promote sustainable mobility in green areas? I don't know if this matches with Christos with the salt lake you explained at the beginning, or somehow it's not exactly green area. Yeah, you can share. Excellent, thank you.
I don't know if it answered your question exactly, but what we do in the Salt Lake, which is a Natura location, and I'm mentioning that because it means that there's not, there are a lot of things that you're not allowed to do to intervene, is formulate the paths for bicycles, whether those are electric or traditional bicycles, because they can be used to navigate a narrow space. I wouldn't be an expert, but I don't think there's a mass transport system that can be adjusted to it. It depends also on what you mean. But I would expect that you would make the conditions of the route possible for small means of transportation like electric bikes, bicycles, maybe motorcycles, scooters, etc.
Any thoughts? Please.
From our experience in rural areas, you need to have public incentives because the private sector is not keen to invest in rural areas because they don't take profitability from the charging stations. So if you are on an urban area, it's easy to attract the private sector. On rural, the public needs to invest and create incentives.
Jaime, any thought?
Yeah. Basically, I would complement what you've mentioned by saying that it would be necessary to discourage the car usage. How to do that? You can spend quite a lot of money by rearranging the urban space or implement other kind of soft measures and try to encourage people to cycling, but using other type of incentives. You can reduce the speed limit in the street so that cyclists are safer cycling in this area. And depending on the budget that you have available, you can include other more drastic measures, like extending the pavements and even to pedestrianize the specific areas, not the whole area, but trying to make tactical measures.
Assault is a Jordanian city with very differences in height. No, I mean the city center is down, but then it is very dispersed city, so the mobility is really challenging there. Any comment from the room or maybe our colleagues online? Here we have one question from Marco, an Area Science Park. And please, I don't see you, Eloise or Giuseppe, so if you have anything to say, please interrupt me, because we cannot see you in the screen now.
Thank you.
Marco,
I wanted to add a consideration about the problem of developing a charging network without public resources. We are coordinating an European project, Horizon 2020, NOMX, which the main aim is to provide the public administration with electric mobility service. But the project, another aim is to develop, to install 100 public charging points in our region, in Friuli Venezia Giulia, northern Italy. And this problem, we saw that business operators are very interested in setting up the infrastructure and to have a presence on the territory because they can do interoperability. But if they own the hardware, the other rely on them. So public authorities, municipalities, can, and we go back to the idea of the strategy and the action. So you have to draft a general strategy. So try to define the number of charging points you need on the whole territory of which you control, you manage. And then, of course, you will have some points which will be more attractive for the market and some others that are not. And you can select business companies by a public tender and maybe make several lots. And in each lot you have several spots. Some that are more, that attract more the business operators, for example, in the central area of cities, and in some other areas which are touristic attractions or where you want to promote tourism, that will be maybe at the beginning a bit failure areas, but you can maybe balance, and this could be a smart public-private partnership or a way to try to manage and to develop the charging infrastructure and promote.
Thank you, Marco. Very interesting, this idea of bundling, of putting together in different bundles or lots. Interesting. And the more strategy, the more light you give to the private sector for investments. Do you have any reaction on that point, Carlos? Do you agree? Do you have some comments?
Yes, we agree. I agree because we have done that in Portugal. The first network that was launched was from the public sector. Okay, so but. I think it was 5 to 7 years after we launched the tender, that we deployed the charging network. The public decided to launch the tender, okay, because they were public, okay, in the beginning, and since the market was kicking, they decided to bundle and to deliver these charging stations to the private sectors, which is what you are mentioning. So we completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Bringing, I think, interesting case here, I can tell you that the island of Mallorca, the Spanish island of Mallorca, at present has 536 electric charging stations, and they deployed more than 250 at once, doing a large contract, launching a large contract. The consequence is that the island is perfectly prepared for electric vehicles, electric cars in this case. And this is fantastic for tourists because they can rent an electric car in the rent-a-cars of the island that, by the way, are managing 130,000 cars. So it is a good example of how to properly plan the deployment of electric infrastructure in contrast to what small cities are doing. They have budget to deploy 3 charging stations, and after 1 year and a half, another 5 from a different vendor and different technology. So it is important to plan well in advance so that the infrastructure is homogeneous.
Any last question or comment before closing? Yeah, please, we have a representative of the city of Agadir in Morocco. Merci d'être avec nous.
Merci beaucoup.
Vous pouvez vous exprimer en français si vous voulez.
Pas grave, on peut s'exprimer aussi en anglais. Hein. Alors, Abdel Mayor, Deputy Mayor of Agadir, City, and in charge of economic aspect, Chairman also of the Urban Mobility Commission. My question is very simple, because the Agadir is, the environment of Agadir is composed by a small village, many small village, and many of the proposed solutions relate to urban centers, And the cities, really, what about rural world in the question? Thank you.
How do we make this integration when the surroundings are not big metropolis but small villages? Maybe Giuseppe, I don't know if you're still with us. I think that it's not that different from the situation in Valencia. Do you have any thought about it? I don't know if he can hear us. No.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is how to interlink relatively big cities with the surroundings that are not really metropolitan, are quite rural. I think, of course, in the surroundings of Valencia there are medium cities, but you have also rural areas relatively close to the city. How to interconnect both?
Yeah, bueno, it's a complex question. It's not easy to answer. It depends how it is the situation. What was the development of all this mid-metropolitan rural area? In Valencia, in the rural area, there was a urban sprawling, and now they are connected with so many roads, with cars, and we are trying to change that. We improved the public transportation system. Lately in June, we have 23 night lines, and then it's easier to connect also at night. And we are trying to articulate also a bike network in this rural area. And we see what we can do to reduce the use of cars, to give better alternatives. In some other area, for what I know, also in some other cities in Valencia, they are making some policies with taxi on demand in some way to connect, but also bus on demand. But it depends on how much investments you can do, what kind of money do you have to do that. But it depends of the areas or where are concentrated the residential areas, and what is the situation that you have with the roads or with connections.
Thank you, Giuseppe. I think that we have a lot to learn in bus and transport on demand from southern Mediterranean countries. And for example, Tunisia, you have the Louage, the Louage system, and also in Morocco that the cars only leave when they are full, collective cars. And this is something that had been removed from Europe for many, many years, and now we're back to this kind of system. And I think we have a lot to learn from you about this way of commuting and this way of moving around. I don't know if online Mrs. Leila Youssef from Irbit, Jordan, that was supposed to be with us, but unfortunately couldn't get the visa, wants to add any comment, and that would be the last one for this session. Mrs. Leila? Give a couple of seconds to see if it works. Doesn't look like. Mrs. Leila, can you hear us? Maybe it was a mistake and it's not expecting to participate. Well, we close it there. Thank you very much to the 3 speakers that are with us and the other 2 that were online.
Bye-bye, thank you.
We break for the lunch and we will be back here at 3 o'clock, so we have a pretty large Mediterranean lunch break. Thank you.